Alright, we're on in 3, 2, 1.
Hi, we're the Bene Bunch. My name's Roselyn.
I'm Kathryn.
I'm Maggie.
I'm Harrison.
I'm Annamarie.
So today on the Bene Bunch, we're going to be discussing the question of inclusion and exclusion and whether or not it's one that requires a resolution. And on top of that, how does Asian American literature that deals with the issues of transnationalism grapple with this question?
So as a group, we found that the fluidity of Asian American identity is the current resolution for the processes of exclusion. From a transnational perspective, we see in all the sources that we read, say like Read Jane or even of yours, all of which, we see how these characters, how they choose and they identify with a certain, identity as a ways of grappling with these processes of exclusion.
So,
How does everyone identify? Let's go around the table here.
well, I think everyone identifies as Asian American, but like, what does that really mean to everyone?
Right. In recent times, that term that we coined as Asian American has become a lot more fluid. Some people are Asian but are nationally American, etc., etc.
Yeah, but like Asians are a nationality.
That's true.
Yeah. Do you guys think it's better to say that you're Asian or like say that you're Chinese or you're Japanese or like you're Filipino?
I always prefer to say Asian because they don't need to know, you know?
I personally say Filipino, just because.
Because you know that question's coming eventually.
True, it's just also like I feel like Filipinos in general just don't have the same experiences as other Asians, and like a lot of people assume Asian means East Asian, and that kind of excludes South Asians and Southeast Asians.
How do you guys think the processes of exclusion have worked with your identity? Have you felt like personally excluded or included, depending on how you put yourself out there, depending on being mixed or whatnot?
And so it's just these little like even nuanced things that like I feel I don't fit into or I don't follow sometimes.
Yeah, but like even Jane, like she grew up very Korean, like in Read Jane. She grew up very Korean household, she speaks Korean. And then to her race, like she's just as Korean as all of her cousins and everyone, but they still, like she's still like excluded a little bit from
Right,
like
her
community.
identity
She's
is
like,
questioned.
she's like treated differently.
What do you guys think about interracial dating?
Yeah, so like I don't necessarily like, oh, I want to date that race or whatever, but usually the people, and even just friends-wise, just relationships or friendships, I usually end up hanging out with like Asians because we share the same background, the same culture. It's just same mindset about things.
Yeah, I don't have like a racial preference. I think if I have a preference, like now that I'm getting older, I have a preference not to piss off my mom. You know what I mean? Like I don't want to.
Right.
Yeah, you don't want to fight with that. That's
Right.
so
It's a
deep
hard
now.
thing.
You know, and I don't see her ever changing. So
So it seems like all these things with dating, there's a lot of disagreements with our parents. Do you guys think this might be due to like generational differences or?
I'm really like my mom really pushes us to all date white people. She's like, you gotta marry a blonde, white, blue-eyed, like German preferably. It's very sketch. But yeah, no, she's like because it's like the same thing as Lawrence, right? When she came to America and she experienced a lot of racism, my dad's family was terrible to her. They'd ask her questions like, do they have plumbing in Korea? And they'd be like, we're upper middle class. What class are you in Korea? And like stuff like that. It's like really? She says, why would you want your kids to experience racism? You should you should marry a white person, and by that time you'll only be a quarter Asian, and you won't even be able to tell,
It's harder for me to connect with somebody who's white, who doesn't have like the same, at least like Filipino background or Asian background, because it comes, especially with your parents that raise you, if they come from an Asian background, like, it'll be a lot different experience if it's like white parents raising you.
Something that's kind of making me wonder about is we learn about in health psychology this concept that as chronic or as like acute disorders, like just simple health problems like cancer, diabetes, etc., as they start to like go down as technology gets better, how chronic problems increase, and that includes a lot of mental health stuff. I kind of wonder how if there's this concept called Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Essentially, it's just that if you want to get onto the next set of needs, you need to first like pass like basic needs and then like security needs, etc., etc., etc. It goes on. It makes me wonder if this is also due to like generational differences. Maybe our parents just kind of they kind of tell us to suck it up and whatnot, but maybe just didn't have the time. I don't know, maybe we're just a little bit privileged to have that sort of time.
So I really think it's interesting how Sarah Deer also mentions that there wasn't such a gender hierarchy before Western colonialism, or it definitely wasn't as pronounced.
But when Rose was talking about like reclaiming the identity, and especially like within the effects of colonialism that we've been talking about, with the talk with the Aruba for the Yoruba religion, like they had that religion set in place, but then they had like all these colonial powers. I can't recall them, but like they had like Christian people come in, they had Muslim people come in, but their way of kind of coping with that and trying to reclaim it, even though they were trying to take control, they would incorporate like all the different things, like they would take up also Christianity but still keep their traditional Yoruba practices, so that even though the colonial powers are still kind of invading, they somehow figure out how to make it their own still. Even the Book of Salt with Vince's mother, she was a Buddhist. Yeah, but then after she married the old man or whatever his name was, she took up the Catholic faith, but did insinuate like in the book that she kind of did it because it was kind of like a doubly guaranteeing your salvation or like afterworld.
Lakshmi's like third gender identity, and even we can put that in with sexuality, is like also seen as a sort of Western concept, which is kind of problematic because that identity has been around for much longer, even though if it didn't have the same name.
Yeah, it's like you're already being marginalized because of your outward appearance and your skin color, and then having to be doubly marginalized and oppressed because of your sexuality. I feel like that's where parents really come from when they have that intolerance, because they don't want their child to be, I don't know if doubly oppressed is the right word to say.
And even with like names and whatnot, we talked about how what was that book recently again?
The Night Counter.
Right, The Night Counter, how they changed their names and whatnot to be more accessible to say like for white consumption and whatnot too.
One time someone was asking me, my ethnicity, and I said, oh, I'm Filipino. And then the first thing they said was, oh, I've never had Filipino food. It's as if saying that the food is the first, most convenient way to connect to the culture. Like, if you haven't eaten the food, then you haven't experienced the culture. And I feel like it's a lot of people's way, and especially white people, it's their way of having a pass and being able to consume someone's culture at their convenience, and they don't have to invest too deeply into, the actual intersectionalities and the, the hardships and the traumas that the culture has experienced.
So then, how would you suggest that white people consume Asian culture then? Because there's such that fine line between appropriation when exploring the culture. Like when you're eating food, you're not wearing a hanbok or anything like that, So how is not everyone's gonna go out and take a Transnational Asian American Literature class who's white to try to understand Asian Americans. So what do you expect them to do? It's the easiest, most accessible way to access your culture, but it's also the least problematic.
On the aspect of consuming one's culture, what if we spin it around? So how we feel kind of weirded out if people of another race try to consume our culture, right? Say wearing it, where do we draw the line, right? But vice versa, do you think that's just because we're afraid of having that specific part of our culture consumed? Do you think that's similar to how maybe a lot of, I'm playing devil's advocate here, but a lot of white individuals say was Lawrence of the Conkins, how he wasn't able to assimilate into those clubs that he wanted to get into? Was it because they're also afraid of him consuming that culture? Kind of makes me wonder what is it that kind of makes us not want to share or have that part of our culture consumed?
It's the racial asymmetries that really also make it problematic for a white person to consume another minority's culture, whether it's appropriation of Black individuals, Asian individuals. But at that same extent, I do think that what is white culture? What do we define as white culture? Because I feel like being white has turned more into a political term. I don't see whiteness as a certain culture?
They just reminded me of Reging when we met Ed and Nina, and I think Ed's Irish and Nina's Italian, right? And we talked about this in class, how historically, when Irish and Italians immigrated, they weren't treated as white. They were discriminated against, and they were the minorities that were oppressed until the darker skinned immigrants came in. And then they got pushed into, white culture. And I feel like I saw this on the discourse topic, but I saw someone comment that the only thing tying white people together isn't necessarily their culture, but it's just how they all have exploitation in common and how they exploit other people and have taken either land, autonomy, or like sovereignty from marginalized people.
Even though I'm ethnically Korean, I can't really, even I personally don't feel that connected to my culture just because I was removed from a young age. I know that it also seems to tie back politically as well. It seems like my father's was the State Department as a diplomat, and I know he tries to stress that I'm American and that we left Korea for a reason. So it's always hard for me to also state that like, this is my culture.
But like, is it our culture? Because I don't know, because I've been there once when I was 4. The only connection I really have to it is my mom. Is she the best representation of Korean culture? We're consuming our culture like through this like weird lens, like how Jane does, because she's in that one like Korean neighborhood, and then she goes Korean, she realizes how different it really is.
I think it kind of makes me wonder about how in Book of Salt we see that mostly in such a Chinese like restaurant, and how even if there's no like specific like Chinese, like if it doesn't like look Chinese, like is it? I remember at one point they talked about like is it like good Chinese food? I was like, at this point it's okay. Is it just like a flurry of cornstarch and like soy sauce and oyster sauce and stuff? Then it's the same. It makes me wonder, I guess, the transnational aspects of culture.
In Asian American characters, you can't really take the Americanness out of them, even though they will look like racially the same. Like if white people are like, oh, go back to where you came from, where are you from? You see when they go transnational and they go back to where they came from. You see how that's not really where they belong either, Anyway, so they're like kind of ousted by their own people, as in like people in American culture. They're like ousted by them, but also they don't fit into where they should belong. I don't know, I just always feel weird. That's also not the only ones I feel weird about the where are you from question, because they're trying to get to Korea, and I'm just like, but I feel almost no connection to that. I feel almost like an imposter if I go to like Korean barbecue or something. I'm like,
right.
I'm not really Korean.
I think with that, it's like how white people consume us and how our identity like can change and how fluid our identity can be depending on where it's coming from.
Thanks for joining us today on the Bene Bunch. Next time, we'll be talking about mansplaining and activism.